So hello everyone, it's me Combo Abel again, back to the history. I'm the history man. Today we're going to talk about the book of Enoch. You know, they removed this book of Enoch. I don't know what's the reason why the Bible removed the book of Enoch. There are many books in the Bible it's been removed. So we want to know why this book of Enoch is removed. So there is a video here, you guys, I want to show you. And this video is about the fallen angels, because the book of Enoch is talk about the fallen angels. This video is about is the channel of online ministry church Watchman Reports. That is the channel of these guys. I don't know who these guys are. I hope they are not black Hebrews. So let's see this video and let's see what it's all about with this video. Combo Abel, so just watch. Wait a minute, I have to put sound.
We are the giants.
Giants, the children of the Nephilim.
The Nephilim. Eliud.
The children of the Nephilim.
So as you know, in the Bible there's Nephilims, and you know there's also the children of Nephilims in the Bible. Or maybe, yeah, Nephilims are those fallen angels, right? So here, you know, Nephilims is like those, like today, now we are calling them aliens. So we want to know if we have aliens in this world today. And who are they and where they come from.
Giants, the seed of the fallen angels.
Seed of the fallen angels.
Nephilim.
The story of the fallen angels begin in Genesis 6, 1 through 4.
And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And God said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of his thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
The sons of God saw beauty of the daughters of men, and desired them as wives.
Oh, how beautiful they are. The daughters of men.
Daughters of men.
Come, let us go down unto them and take them as wives.
Bear our children, yes.
And our seed will be mingled with theirs.
Yes.
Many people think that the term sons of God does not mean that they were angels. But if you read Job 1:6, you'll see that this is exactly what they are, angels. Job 1:6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahuwah, and Satan came also among them. Also in Job 38, 6 through 7. It states how the sons of God shouted for joy before man was even created. The sons of God are angels.
Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy?
The Book of Enoch makes it clear that this is exactly what happened. The Book of Enoch 7:2. And when the watchers, angels, the sons of heaven, beheld them, they became enamored with them, saying to each other, Come, let us select for ourselves wives of the progeny of men, and let us beget children.
Many people do not accept the Book of Enoch, but it has hard facts proving that the angels took wives. The King James Version, on the other hand, isn't that clear. But the Book of Enoch makes it very clear. This may be why the Book of Enoch was not added to the Bible, and why so many are so skeptical about the book. Modern scholars estimate the older sections, mainly the Book of the Watchers, is dated at about 300 BC. And the latest part, the Book of the Parables, is probably dated around the 1st century BC. Discoveries of copies of the book among the Dead Sea Scrolls found at Qumran proves that the book was in existence before the birth of the Messiah, and it had a great influence on the early Messianic believers. Why is this important? Well, many of the sayings of the Messiah was derived from the Book of Enoch.
Over 100 phrases in the New Testament find precedence in the Book of Enoch. Here are a few of them. John 4:14. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The Book of Enoch 48:1. In that place I beheld a fountain of righteousness which never failed. The term children of light in the Bible may have come from the Book of Enoch 105:25. And now I will call the spirits of the good from the generation of light, and will change those who have been born in darkness. Matthew 22:30. For the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. The Book of Enoch 50:4. And all the righteous shall become like angels in heaven. When the Messiah said in Luke 6:24, But woe unto you that are rich. It is a direct quote from the Book of Enoch 93:1. Woe to you who are rich. Terms like Son of Man, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, all were found in the Book of Enoch. This pretty much validates the book, since both the Messiah and his apostles quote from it. According to the Book of Enoch, 200 angels descended upon Ardis, which is the top of Mount Armon today, known as Mount Hermon, which is located on the border between Lebanon and Syria. The Book of Enoch 7:7. Then they swore all together, and all bound themselves by mutual execrations. Their whole number was 200, who descended upon Ardis, which is the top of Mount Armon. The Book of Enoch 7:10-15. Then they took wives, each choosing for himself, whom they began to approach, and with whom they cohabitated, teaching them sorcery, incantations, and the dividing of roots and trees. And the woman conceiving brought forth giants. whose stature was each 300 cubits. These devoured all which the labor of men produced, until it became impossible to feed them, when they turned themselves against men, in order to devour them, and began to injure birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes, to eat their flesh one after another, and to drink their blood. Then the earth reproved the unrighteous. The Hebrew word for giant is nephil, from nephal, properly, a feller, example, a bully or tyrant, giant. There are three races that came forth from the fallen angels: the giants, which are the nephilim, the nephil, which are the children of the giants, and the Eliud, or Eljo, which are the children of the nephil. Jubilees 7:21-22. For owing to these three things came the flood upon the earth, namely, owing to the fornication wherein the watchers against the law of their ordinances went a-whoring after the daughters of men, and took themselves wives of all which they chose. And they made the beginning of uncleanliness, and they begat sons, the Nephilim. And they were all unlike, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Eljo, and the Eljo mankind, and one man another. 2 Peter 2:4-5. For if Elohim spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly.
And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day.
Most people believe that the giants were all destroyed in the flood, and that the fallen angels were all bound in everlasting chains. This is true as it relates to the first fallen angels and giants. But we must keep in mind that there were giants after the flood that dwelt in the land of Canaan. Where did these new race of giants come from? If the first giants came of fallen angels, and the original fallen angels were bound unto judgment, we can only conclude that they must have come from a new generation of fallen angels. They continue to come down and take the daughters of men as wives and bear children unto them. This is why Paul warned us of this thing, of angels coming down and talking to us.
Galatians 1:6-8. I marvel that ye are so soon removed from him that called you into the favor of the Messiah unto another good message, which is not another. But there be some that trouble you, and would pervert the good message of the Messiah. But though we, or an angel from heaven, preach any other message unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed.
Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares.
Did you hear that? I find it amazing that Paul said that an angel can come and give you a message contrary to that which the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart Spirit, had given. You mean to tell me that some of us has entertained angels and wasn't aware of it? That means not knowing that they were angels. They took on the form of flesh and blood, and some took on this form in order to take human wives. This is why we see giants after the time of the flood. The land of Canaan was filled with them. The scriptures give account that there were many giants throughout the land of Canaan after the flood. Where did they come from?
And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites call them Emims. For only Og king of Bashan remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it after the cubit of a man.
The Book of Enoch 7:11-12. And the women conceiving brought forth giants, whose stature was each 300 cubits. These devoured all which the labor of men produced, until it became impossible to feed them. Most Christians try to discredit the Book of Enoch based on the passage that says the giants were 300 cubits tall, which makes the giants around 450 feet. That's pretty incredible, and seems to be questionable. The scribes and translators must have made an error, and the actual text could have read 30 cubits instead of 300, making the giants about 45 feet tall, which is in accordance to some of the remains being found.
I find it strange that Christians are willing to discredit the Book of Enoch based on a couple of errors. But the King James Version has hundreds of such errors, not to mention Christianity itself is full of errors.
The Book of Enoch is one of those that's accepted by some and rejected by others. It is a very controversial book because it raises a lot of questions about the identity of certain racial groups, and it brings greater understanding to many of the mystical things that are greatly misunderstood today. You have the question of the giants, the spirits that roam the earth, the elements of end-time prophecy, and so much more that are very difficult to simply just dismiss because there's just too much starting to make sense as certain events unfold.
We know for a fact that there were giants in the land of Canaan after the flood. Where did they come from? The Book of Enoch and the Book of the Giants give very good information about the giants and the fallen angels they sprung for, and who their descendants are.
The Book of Giants is an Apocrypha Hebrew book, expanding a narrative in the Bible. Its discovery at Qumran dates the text's creation to before the 2nd century BC. The Book of Giants is thought to have been based on the Book of Enoch, a pseudepigraphical Hebraic work from the 3rd century BC, itself based on Genesis 6:1-4 concerning the Nephilim, which, in the Enoch version, are the offspring of fallen angels. Aramaic fragments, along with other fragments from the Book of Enoch, were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran. The text relates how some giants, named Oya, Ahaya, and Mawe, sons of the fallen angels, have some dreams that foresee the biblical flood. The Book of Giants, Fragment J, verses 27. Thereupon the giants began to kill each other and to abduct their wives. The creatures too began to kill each other. They chose beautiful women and demanded them in marriage. So did all carried off severally. They were subjected to tasks and services. and they from each city, and were ordered to serve the Messenians of Messenia, which was a region of Greece.
The first Messenian War was a war between Messenia and Sparta. It took place around 754 BC. In 480 BC, Leonidas, Sparta, sacrifices 300 Spartan soldiers at the Battle of Thermopylae so the main forces can escape the Persians. This is where we get the movie 300 from. Of course, they made a lot of changes to the original story. Now, why is this so important? These early nations were all descendants of fallen angels, which the Nephilim sprang forth from.
Most authors have not taken into account that this Nephilim and their children the Eliud could reproduce. This explains some of the strangeness of ancient mythology. Moreover, perhaps were humanoids, such as the Neanderthals came from, and why they are not of the same DNA branch as modern humans out of Africa. However, Neanderthals were not the only hominin species that humans mated with. According to a new study, East Asian and European populations share genes with the Neanderthal. Also, East Asians share genes with the mysterious archaic hominin species that lived in Siberia, the Denisovians, that are close cousin to the Neanderthal.
So, yo guys, did you hear that? That there's some people like we African, we are not, we don't share DNA with Neanderthal. So I'm going to reverse this, and then from here we're going to see who are the original human being. Because if you don't share with the Neanderthal, because Neanderthal is not 100% human being. So let's go.
Region of Greece.
The first Messenian War was a war between Messenia and Sparta. It took place around 754 BC. In 480 BC, Leonidas, Sparta, sacrifices 300 Spartan soldiers at the Battle of Thermopylae so the main forces can escape the Persians. This is where we get the movie 300 from. Of course, they made a lot of changes to the original story. Now, why is this so important? These early nations were all descendants of fallen angels, which the Nephilim sprang forth from.
Most authors have not taken into account that this Nephilim and their children the Eliud could reproduce. This explains some of the strangeness of ancient mythology. Moreover, perhaps were humanoids, such as the Neanderthals came from, and why they are not of the same DNA branch as modern humans out of Africa. However, Neanderthals were not the only hominin species that humans mated with. According to a new study, East Asian and European populations share genes with the Neanderthal. Also, East Asians share genes with the mysterious archaic hominin species that lived in Siberia, the Denisovians, that are close cousin to the Neanderthal.
For hundreds of years, many have tried to explain away the existence of aliens, demons, and fallen angels. It has been labeled as fiction, the stuff that movies are created from. But now...
Okay, so you hear that? So we have some aliens and demons in this world, maybe. And we have some people who are maybe have the DNA of aliens in this world, which we are living. There's some people we live with them who have a DNA of the aliens. So I don't know, this is what the video say, I don't know, so let's see what is going on here.
Now, even science has uncovered some astounding facts that are baffling the minds of people all over the world. The fact that there are 145 alien genes discovered by modern scientists that claim that some DNA is not from earthly ancestors should be enough to cause us to rethink things that we label as fiction. In the May 2011 edition of the Discover magazine, titled "You Are Not Human," referring to the Asian and Caucasian race in an article titled "Meet the New Human Family," states that there were times when more than one species shared our planet. The article also states that anatomically modern humans interbred with Neanderthals in the Middle East before they populated Europe and Asia. Scientists are now saying that the Neanderthal gene is only present in the Asian and Caucasian, not in the African, and that when the Africans migrated out of Africa, they mated with something else. The question we should be asking is, where did the Neanderthal come from? Did the humankind truly evolve from apes? Did Asians and Caucasians come from the mixing of the seed of the fallen angels? Are there aliens among us? Where has this strange DNA come from? Are the demons and aliens that many claim to have seen the same entity? Lastly, where do the fallen angels spoken of in the Bible fit into all of this?
Now, our pigmentation is contained not just in floating around at random, it's in packets, cellular packets of pigment called melanosomes.
At first glance, under the microscope, there was no difference between the packets of pigments in the golden variety and those in the normal variety.
And then we submitted part of that for electron microscopy, which has much higher resolution, and there's where we saw a difference in the number, size, and density of those melanosomes in those melanophore, the pigmented cells.
Dr. Cheng was struck by the fact that these same three differences applied to light versus dark-skinned humans. Our skin also varies in the size, number, and intensity of pigments. The team then isolated the gene responsible for skin pigmentation in the zebrafish and showed that a mutation caused the golden variety's pale skin.
So this must be the one between, this is average.
Out of curiosity, the researchers examined the databases listing all the human genes.
You don't see a flat line around it.
Surprise! They found a very similar gene, SLC24A5. But how could they find out whether the gene had the same function in humans as in zebrafish? They tried an experiment, injecting the human gene into the golden zebrafish. Jason Mest did the procedure, and it worked. When injected with the human gene, the embryo of the golden variety developed darker markings. Add a human gene, and a zebrafish can change its stripes. It was progress, but not the breakthrough they were looking for. Now Dr. Cheng had to show that humans had a mutation comparable to that of the golden zebrafish that would explain lighter skin in people. Research work, like music, requires keen intuition and subtle interpretation combined with a great capacity for analysis. The geneticist called in fellow researcher Victor Canfield and an anthropologist, Mark Shriver. They set out to find a mutation, but not just anyone. It had to affect nearly everyone with light skin or the population with European ancestry. The mutation also had to be almost totally absent from other populations. In the HapMap catalogs, these circles represent the frequency of the gene's various mutations in 4 populations: European, Chinese, Japanese, and Nigerian. The researchers' job consisted in finding a group made up of a circle of one color and 3 circles of another. One day, they hit upon just such a combination: 1 blue circle for the European population and 3 red ones for the other populations.
It was a very striking finding, and it wasn't quite the aha moment it could have been until Mark Shriver, who's done more of this work, realized that the frequencies are not only unusual but extremely unusual. that this is, very few genes show that pattern. In this case, that we have almost 100% of one variant in one population and almost 0% of the same variant in other populations.
The mutation identified in the circles consisted in a unique change, A for the European population, which becomes G in all the other populations. The letters A, C, T, and G represent the building blocks of DNA. One tiny change among the hundreds of thousands of possible combinations in the human genome. The researchers then showed that the gene played a central role in the evolution of European skin color. It was like winning the lottery.
So there are 3 billion bases in our genome. One letter of that, which changes one amino acid in this protein, seems to be responsible for the evolution of lighter skin color in Europeans.
But the gene doesn't explain the difference in skin color between blacks and Asians. Other as yet undiscovered genes are likely involved. Still, it is the most important skin color gene yet discovered. We have the zebrafish to thank, not to mention Mr. Ba for the inspiration. The discovery casts new light on an old theory.
It actually provides very great support for other people's work that have tried to explain why people have lighter skin in Europe, which is that in order to not get rickets, because we need vitamin D from the sun, we have to be exposed to that in our skin. You need lighter skin in order to make enough vitamin D to not get rickets to live further north.
According to the theory, some 200,000 years ago, the first modern humans, black Africans, started migrating outside Africa. But by showing that the original skin color of humans was black and that whiteness is a recent mutation in evolutionary terms, it doesn't contradict it. It's also a way of saying that whatever our skin color, our ancestors were black. As a doctor, Chang saw applications for the discovery in the fight against skin cancer and other diseases.
This is a very important cancer susceptibility gene because lighter skinned people get a lot of skin cancer. It also causes susceptibility to acquired form of blindness, age-related macular degeneration. And perhaps this gene could be a target for treating melanoma, which is a very deadly cancer.
Mutate, to change in form or nature. Mutation. 1. The action or process of mutating. Synonyms: alteration, change, variation, modification, transformation, metamorphosis, transmutation. 2. The changing of the structure of a gene, resulting in a variant form that may be transmitted to subsequent generations, caused by the alteration of single base units in DNA, or the deletion, insertion, or rearrangement of larger sections of genes or chromosomes. Mutant. 1. A new type of organism produced as the result of mutation. 2. Undergoing or resulting from mutation. Mutant. 1. Freak, monster, mutation, deviant, oddity, monstrosity, or freak of nature.
Notice how his research has shown that Europeans and Asians are actually a mutation of the dark indigenous people of Africa. This means that mankind started off with dark skin, but through the infiltration of the human bloodline through sex and profuse mating, you now have those of lighter skin, which are a derivative of dark indigenous people. Their DNA is actually mixed with fallen angels, and this is why you see the Neanderthal genes in whites and Asians. The white skin in Caucasians is a genetic mutation, and that is a fact that many whites and Asians have accepted and even teach openly, and with a great deal of pride, as a matter of fact.
really, this is going to sound silly, but this is really, really important, cutting-edge genetics. One of the areas I'm really lucky I'm blessed to work in three distinct areas of biology: immunology, genetics, and reproduction. And on the genetics side, I get to go to conferences and hear about advances in genetics in all species. And I was just at one a couple of weeks ago down at the Cold Spring Harbor Lab in Long Island, and I learned a bit about what's being known about the genome of Neanderthals, the genetic makeup of Neanderthals. The genome sequencers, led by Svante Pabo, who works in Germany, has taken tiny little fragments of Neanderthal bones, isolated DNA, and determined the genome of the Neanderthal, and used that information to determine, using genetic methods, how long ago Neanderthals and humans were a single species, where the common ancestor was. They've also been able to compare human genomes and ask the question of whether there's any evidence of Neanderthal genes in the human genome. And they've found that there is. And the amount is quite significant, upwards of 5 to 7%. Neanderthals used to live in the Neander Valley. You could have called it the Cayuga Lake Basin, but that's where they lived. And out of Africa came the modern humans, and the word the geneticist uses, admixed. They admixed with the Neanderthals. And they all used to live in caves in those days like this. Came out of Africa, admixed with the Neanderthals. This was Neanderthal territory. There was another group of Neanderthal-like creatures called the Denisovans. They lived up here in Siberia, and they have their genome has been sequenced. They were distinct from the Neanderthals. And so you can find in people of European and Asian ancestry evidence of about 7%, 5 to 10% of your genome is common with that of Neanderthals. We've been separated from them for 30,000 years or so. And in some of the tribes in Papua New Guinea and those islands out there, there's evidence for a different kind of genome, which is probably the Denisovan genome. And they might have 7% Neanderthal and 5% Denisovan. So they might be 12 or 15% different from us. And in fact, the Africans who came out from Africa have no evidence of any Neanderthal genes in them. No evidence of admixture. So they're the real pure humans.
So, guys, when you see here the way this professor, he said Africans, so they are the real pure humans. You see, these are professors. So Africans, they are not monkeys. We are the pure humans, okay? This is just for the lesson for the ones who, when they see a black man or African, I don't know. I don't say all of them, they have that thinking mind. But here, the professor, he just said, Africans, they are the real pure humans. We don't have Neanderthal genome. We don't have a Neanderthal gene in us. No. And if somebody have Neanderthal gene, he's not 100% human. But African, they don't have Neanderthal gene. That means they are the real pure humans. Okay? So when I say like that, it's like even Hitler didn't know that. He didn't know that he have a gene of Neanderthal. And as we see, the video is telling us only 90% of Europeans, they have a Neanderthal gene. And even Asian people, they have Neanderthal gene. Only African, they don't have Neanderthal gene. And that's why they are the ones who are pure humans. Okay, let's go.
Humans, Homo sapiens. Really, really interesting. It gives you a lot to think about.
I'm going to reverse this so that people don't say I'm just speaking something.
Is common with that of Neanderthals. We've been separated from them for 30,000 years or so. And in some of the tribes in Papua New Guinea and those islands out there, there's evidence for a different kind of genome, which is probably the Denisovan genome. And they might have 7% Neanderthal and 5% Denisovan. So they might be 12 or 15% different from us. And in fact, the The Africans who came out from Africa have no...
You have heard that? The Africans who came out from Africa and then they came in Europe. Because there's some African who came in Europe and they found Neanderthal here in Europe. So the Africans, the modern Europeans, the modern Africans who came here in Europe and live here for a long time. I mean, this is for a long time ago. The modern humans who came in Europe and they found Neanderthal who is not 100% human. So these Africans who modern human are, they mix with that Neanderthal. They mixed up. So after mixing, this is why we get, I think, these modern Europeans we see today. I think it's like that. I don't know.
Evidence of any Neanderthal genes in them. No evidence of admixture. So they're the real pure humans. You hear that? That Africans are the pure humans, yeah? Okay? I'm going to reverse this so that everybody can listen to us carefully. Different from us. And in fact, the Africans who came out from Africa have no evidence of any Neanderthal genes in them. No evidence of admixture. So they're the real pure humans. Homo sapiens. Really, really interesting, and it gives you a lot to think about. Right.
In 1987, Kahn and her colleagues published a paper showing for the first time that the markers stretch back to Africa, showing quite clearly.
So I'm going to show this. Now here is going to show you how the Africans, they came in Europe and Asia. You know, those modern, those original humans who came in Europe and Asia and they mixed up with those. And then how the African, they changed to become white-skinned people. You know, because many you see white people, you think they are white, but the Africans who became white, you know.
That this was the birthplace of the human race. New Guinean tribesman, Parisian bartender, American teacher, Polynesian farmer, all were improbable relatives linked through one black woman, 150,000.
So, you know, we all came from Adam and Eve. And from Adam and Eve, all race came outside there. There is no other place where any race came. There is no race came from, there is no 100 pure human being came from a monkey or a rock or a tree, or I don't know what the evolution they're going to tell you. Or maybe a fish or reptilia. No, we are not reptilians. We are human beings, pure human beings. And from these first pure human being, this is all race came out there. So let's see.
1,000 years ago, their findings caused a sensation.
The responses of people were sort of amazing. The public was genuinely interested in certain aspects of it, but there was a tendency to misinterpret the data because of the terminology used to describe this woman, African Eve. And people thought it meant the biblical Eve, the single woman in the Judeo-Christian Bible, the wife of Adam. I have to say, even my own uncle sent me a Christmas card the year that our study was published saying, "How dare you, you know Grandma wasn't black."
Her work is rewriting human history. Through it, we now know the first mutations took place in Africa, maybe 150,000 years ago. Australian Aborigines are an ancient people, but they no longer look like their ancestors who arrived all those thousands of years ago. Their bodies have adapted, retaining all those characteristics needed to survive as hunter-gatherers in the harsh desert environment. Under the skin, we are all very much alike. Our DNA shows that we come from one very small gene pool.
If we look at the DNA of all of us, Australians, Africans, Europeans, we find that comparing the mitochondrial DNA of all of us, we show less variation. Even though there are billions of us and we're spread over the whole world, we show less variation in our mitochondrial DNA than we would find in, say, a small group of chimpanzees or orangutans or gorillas. Those apes show more variation, even in their small groups, than the entire human race shows.
But if all the people from around the world descend from such a small gene pool, why do we all look so completely different? Natural selection and adaptation to the environment are the most important factors. Sexual selection is crucial. Climate dictates body shape. The colder the environment, the shorter and more stocky you become to retain heat. Height relates to diet. The most obvious and striking difference is color. And that's also a part of our genetic inheritance. Nina Jablonski, a leading scientist looking at the evolution of skin color, was working on the importance of folic acid in fetal development when she stumbled by chance on the answer.
I started doing research on the evolution of skin color after preparing a lecture for a class over 10 years ago. It was interesting, preparing for the class, I realized that there was very little that was known about the evolution of skin color, and what was known wasn't very cogent. I discovered an interesting paper when I was preparing that lecture that showed that there was an interesting and important relationship between ultraviolet radiation and a very important biomolecule called folate.
Folic acid is crucial for embryonic development, and too much ultraviolet radiation from the sun destroys it. So our ancestors in tropical Africa needed to be dark to protect their survival. But too little ultraviolet prevents the formation of vitamin D, causing rickets, which can kill. So as they migrated to the sunless north, they had to grow paler to survive. She has uncovered a very simple evolutionary equation.
When we look at the pattern of skin pigmentation among indigenous peoples today, we see very dark people in equatorial regions with high UV and significantly lighter people as we get toward the poles. And it turns out that melanin, the natural sunscreen, is phenomenally good at screening out ultraviolet radiation. To some extent, it's too good. And in order for us to be able to make enough vitamin D in our skin, we have to reduce the amount of melanin that exists in the skin. And so what we see in the course of our species history, as we've moved from an area of high UV to areas of lower UV, our skin has become more and more depigmented.
Well, if you make the assumption that the human race arose like around the equator and that skin color, dark skin color would be the phenotype, then are you assuming that as people moved outward, there was a mutation, and if you were in the north, it allowed that mutation to live, which is how we got white people?
Yes.
Would that follow?
Yeah.
Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not.
Skin that has no melanin shows visibly different than skin that does have melanin, using a special UV camera. It is very clear that something is lacking in skin that is melanin deficient, which is why it needs protection from the sun. Without special protection applied to the skin, pale skin can become severely damaged by the sun and is more susceptible to developing melanoma or skin cancer. Notice how when you apply sunscreen or sun protection creams, the pale skin almost appears to be melanated when viewed through the lens of a special UV camera. When viewing normally, this skin does not have the appearance of melanated skin. Using a special UV camera, skin that has no melanin shows visibly different than skin that does have melanin. It is very clear that something is lacking in skin that is melanin deficient, which is why it needs protection from the sun. Without special protection applied to the skin, pale skin can become severely damaged by the sun and is more susceptible to developing melanoma or skin cancer. Notice how when you apply sunscreen or sun protection creams, the pale skin appears almost melanated when viewed through the special lens of a UV camera. When viewing normally, this skin does not have the appearance of melanated skin. Notice, if you go back only a few hundred years, the indigenous people all around the world were dark-skinned. You have the Native Americans, the Mexicans, South Americans, Asians, Australians even, the people of India, Arabs, and even those who occupied large areas of Europe were all dark-skinned. But now what we're seeing is that many of these groups have white or very light skin because the dark population has been infiltrated. Some through intentional breeding out, such as blanqueamento, which is a process of whitening. This is where they'll bring in European males to mate with the indigenous populations. And some through rape and subjugation. The whole world has basically been whited out or is being whited out, and this is causing a lot of confusion to those who are the offspring that has been...
For me, that is no problem. This is just for them, but for me, it's no problem. You know, for me, that what she's saying is for me no problem. For her, it's a problem, but not all black people think like her. So don't put all black people in eine Topf.
Produced from the mixing of races.
We must remove the Book of Enoch, the Book of the Giants, and any books that reveal who we are and what we are doing. Yes. We have sown our seed throughout the earth. Yes. Our seed is everywhere. Yes. These are our children. Yes. Yes. We must hide our identity. We must hide our identity. Yes.
Angels and demons can't cross over onto our plane. So instead we get what I call half-breeds. Those with a demon's touch, like those part angel, living alongside us. They call it the balance.
We know by our previous studies that the sons of Japheth lived and populated the area between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. It was actually Japheth's sons and grandsons that populated this area: Meshech, Tubal, Ashkenaz, and Togarma. This area is also known as the Caucasus Mountains. Also, we know that according to the Book of Jasher, Esau's grandson Zepho became king over children of Chittim. Japheth's grandson, also called Rome, subdued the children of Tubal and the surrounding islands of Japhet and the Caucasus Mountains.
This is the missing link between Japheth and Esau and the modern Caucasians, or the white race. According to the Book of Enoch, 200 angels descended upon Arnis, which is the top of Mount Armin, today known as Mount Hermon, which is not far from the Caucasus Mountains. Believe it or not, Esau's seed was spoiled a long time before he mingled his seed with Japheth.
Chapter 36. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Adah the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Aholibamah the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth. And Adah bare to Esau Eliphaz, and Bashemath bare Ruel, and Aholibamah bare Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau, which were born unto him in the land of Canaan.
Notice at the time that the children of Israel went spied out the promised land, or it was actually called what? The land of Canaan, it was full of what? Giants. The children and grandchildren of the fallen angels. They were known for terrorizing all those that dwelt in the land. What woman did the fallen angels take after the flood? The fallen angels before the flood were all bound in chains. And giants, all the giants that were born to them were all destroyed in the flood. So why then are we seeing giants in the land of Canaan after the time of the flood?
The angels were still mating with women, and they mated with the mixed seed of Ham's son Canaan. This offspring of the mixed seed of Ham became the new giants after the flood. Notice, David kills Goliath in 1024 BC, and Esau is born in 2006 BC. The Nephilim are the giants, the children of the fallen angels, and the Nephil are the grandchildren of the fallen angels. They would snatch the daughters of the people that came from Ham, Esau, and Japheth, and these children are the Eljo, or Eliud.
Remember the movie Time Machine? Keep in mind that Esau, according to the scriptures, was a troglodyte, a cave dweller. The book of the Giants states that the giants begin to kill each other and to abduct the wives of the fallen angels. This is why the Asians and Caucasians have Neanderthal DNA and not the African. The Neanderthal was a troglodyte, a cave dweller, just like Esau.
Even Discover Magazine, May 2011, with the catchy title, "You Are Not Human," says that Caucasian and Asians are 3% Neanderthal and up to 5% Denisovian, and a whole lot of bizarre early ancestors. This could be where the Star Child's skull came from. The Star Child's skull is a malformed partial human skull, likely to have been that of a child which paranormalist Lloyd Pye has claimed is of extraterrestrial origin. Pye claimed to have obtained the skull from Ray and Melanie Young of El Paso, Texas in February 1999, stating that the skull was found around 1930 in a mine tunnel about 100 miles or 160 kilometers southwest of Chihuahua, Mexico, buried alongside a normal human skeleton that was exposed and lying supine on the surface of the tunnel. Pye claimed the skull to be a hybrid offspring of an extraterrestrial and a human female.
At one time, we believed that Esau's seed was spoiled when the barbarians sacked Rome, since Rome was Edom. But more truth has been revealed in the scriptures since then. Esau's seed was spoiled long before the sacking of Rome. So now when you look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 31 through 44, now it shines a little more light on that passage.
Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
Notice that all these kingdoms are metals: gold, silver, brass, and iron. But when it mentions the seed of men, it calls men what? Clay. The clay represents the indigenous people of the earth, and the metals represents the seed of the fallen angels. The clay represents the indigenous people of the world. They, meaning Rome, mingled their seed with the seed of men. All these kingdoms are the same as the mountains mentioned in the book of Enoch.
The book of Enoch 51:5. And that angel of peace answered me, saying, Wait but a short time, and you shall understand, and every secret thing shall be revealed to you, which the Master of Spirits has decreed. Those mountains which you have seen, the mountain of iron, the mountain of copper, the mountain of silver, the mountain of gold, the mountain of fluid metal, and the mountain of lead, all these in the presence of the elect one, shall be like a honeycomb before the fire, and like water descending from above upon these mountains, and shall become debilitated before his feet.
When does the Roman kingdom of the fallen angels mingle their seed with the seed of men? Just before the Messiah returns and smite the image at the mingling part of the image of iron and clay. That is why the scriptures say that it takes place in the days of these kings shall the Elohim of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and shall stand forever.
Whether believe it or not, the human landscape has changed through the infiltration of DNA from entities outside of the human race. Now, many explanations have been provided for this over the years as to why we all look vastly different, but scientific evidence has proven that all non-Africans have DNA markers that are not completely human. Truth is truth, facts are facts, and the proof is in the pudding, as some may say. But everything we thought we knew is actually the real illusion, and that we thought was an illusion or a figment of our imagination is more real than our reality. The Book of Enoch is actually helping to unravel some of the mysterious ideologies that we see in fiction movies. Now, those who control the media, they were merely taunting our imaginations with the truth while telling us none of it was real. But the reality is, much of it is real, but our minds can't comprehend it as real because we've been controlled and programmed for far too long.
The seed of the fallen angels have been spread all over the planet. Think about the Messiah saying this: except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of Elohim. And except a man be born of the water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of Elohim. That's John chapter 3, verse 3 and 5. The non-African's blood have been mingled with the blood of fallen angels. Therefore, he must be born again. Why? So that he can become a new creature in the Mashiach, the Messiah. If any man be in the Mashiach or the Messiah, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new. A new creation, because the old creation have been spoiled. Esau and Japheth's seed have been corrupted. The scripture states in Joel chapter 3 verse 21 that Yah is even going to cleanse Israel's blood when he gathers his people. The Most High have truly made a way for every man. This is why we must be born again. Some of the things that science have brought out seem to be quite disturbing. But if you look closely at the scripture and in some of the lost books, you'll see that it isn't something new. It has always been here in the word of Elohim, waiting to be revealed in the last days. Now, my question to you is this: do you want to be enlightened, or do you want to just stay in the dark?
So guys, as you see this video is about the fallen angels, Neanderthal. It's about the fallen angels, Neanderthal, the seed of Esau, the seed of Japheth, the way it's been spoiled. This is what we say. So we are coming to the end. The truth will come out. We are living in the end times, my friend. The Bible says we are living in the end times. So the fallen angels, they are already living with us here. So take the Bible, be sober-minded, research who you are. Life is very short. you will live and die one day. Don't forget that. So Jesus calling you.
From this point on, we hope that this film will cause you to look at the world from a different, more realistic perspective, and not to merely just see it through the programming that you've received from a very early age. So what you need to do is ask yourself, what really is real? And what information do I need to abandon altogether?
So that was the Book of Enoch, the Seed of the Falling Angels. That was a documentary video. I hope you guys, when I put it in my YouTube channel, I hope you're gonna be subscribe my YouTube channel and give the thumbs up. Yeah, put some more likes in this video, and you can also send this video to your friends. Yes, so you can support my videos, bro. So thank you, Combo Abel. I'm back. I hope YouTube David. I hope I will become. I hope this video will go viral. So thank you guys for looking at this video. I'm your man, Combo Abel, the information man, the history man. Come back, Combo Abel. Combo Abel combination.